Welcome to another episode of Austin Tech Connect. This is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. I can't believe we're at the 3-year anniversary of this podcast. We have interviewed some great people here in Austin. We've taken a look at Austin past, present, and future, and we're looking forward to the whole lineup that we have scheduled for 2026. So this is the last show of 2025, and we're going out with a bang with a great guest. But first, I have to thank the sponsor of Austin Tech Connect, and that is Calavista Software. Calavista specializes in software development without the drama. They have been trusted by startups and Fortune 100 companies alike for their custom software needs, and they are a true community champion to the Austin Technology Council. Not only do they support the podcast, but their CEO, Lawrence, is on our board and is a great guide for the things we're trying to do with ATC going forward. But today, our focus is going to go on to another person in the custom software world, and that is Scott Kenyon. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Last one of the year, and that's a little pressure.
That's a lot of pressure. The whole year rides on you, Scott, because it has been a great year of shows. So I'm hoping that you're paying attention here.
Yes, sir.
So Scott is a founding partner at Applaudo. And for those of you who don't know Applaudo, we're going to learn a lot more about them today. But what they do is they develop custom software solutions from startups to enterprise companies. They specialize in helping people with the cloud, AI, design, DevOps, cybersecurity, sort of across the board. And Scott has been here in Austin for 12 years. It's actually his second stint. He's one of those people who came with Dell, worked for a couple years, decided, I'll go somewhere else, and then went, no, got to come back to Austin. And that's what we love, because Austin, people don't want to leave, and if they do, they want to boomerang right back. So he's got 2 kids. One of them's in college, and one of them is in high school. So he's almost done with raising the children, and he and his wife are looking forward to having that downtime once they are in those empty nesters here in Austin. So Scott, did I miss anything in your introduction?
No, that was a great introduction. Thank you.
So Scott, let's start off early. Let's go back to Colorado. Let's go back to college, Scott. And you're getting out of college. Where'd your career start, and how did it get you to where it is today?
Yeah, well, I actually dropped out of college, just like Michael Dell, after my sophomore year to start a business. And it was driven by 2 things. One, I came from an entrepreneurial family. My grandfather had started numerous businesses. He never hit it big, but he made a living. So that was always in there. And when I was in college, I was learning about all this, and I was like, hey, I want to go start my business. And thank goodness I had the dean of the University of Colorado Business School, Dean Limberopoulos. I still remember it.
That's a heck of a mouthful of a name.
Yeah, I can't spell it, but I can remember it. He said, of course you should go do this. He said, just promise me you'll come back and finish. And I was like, well, why is that so important? I said, because you want me to get my MBA? He goes, you're going to get more than an MBA the next couple of years starting your own business. But just come back and finish. And I was like, okay. So I did that. We built up a small retail store called KC Sports in Southern Colorado, built that up to about 5 locations. And then we sold it, not for a big exit, but for a young guy. I had some spending money, and I went back and finished school at that point.
Good for you.
As soon as I finished school, as you mentioned, I came to Austin for Dell Computers.
Nice. And what did you do at Dell, and how long were you there?
I was at Dell for almost 14 years. Wow. I started in sales, quickly was moved to Latin America because I'm so Latin, and started up facilities in El Salvador, and then ran operations for all of Latin America. Eventually became the GM for Latin America, lived in El Salvador, lived in Brazil, and then they came back. They made me come back to the U.S., where I finished out my career as leading their medium business sales division.
Nice. So then was Applaudo the next step? What happened next?
Now, then I went to a startup here in Austin called Funware. They were a mobile software development firm. They're making SDKs. The iPad was just coming out in 2013, and I joined them in 2012.
Nice. Well, I mean, you've had kind of the eclectic good background here in Austin. So let's learn a little bit about Applaudo. I've seen you guys in the news. I know that the company, I think, was founded in El Salvador, if I remember reading my pre-work to have you on the call. How did you get connected with them? Was it while you were in El Salvador the first time? Let's talk about the founding of the company, when you joined, and you've been kind of around the news lately. You're growing. You're doing some cool stuff. Let's talk about everything Applaudo is up to.
Yeah, so we all met at Dell in El Salvador. So there's 3 co-founders. 2 of them are based down in El Salvador, San Salvador, and I'm based here. And that's kind of unique for a nearshore development company. Most of the founders are all based down there and move up here. But being a part of, I lived in Nashville for Dell for a few years. I lived in Austin. So those are 2 big tech cities. So it really benefited us to do that. The other connection with Dell is my COO is ex-Dell with us. My CIO is ex-Dell with us. And then we have numerous mid-level managers, leaders that are also ex-Dell. So we've benefited from that relationship a ton.
So you've kept the band together with some of your friends.
Yes, sir.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about this. It's a competitive market, this whole world of, custom software. Let's talk about what you guys do and what you do so well.
Yeah. So we do everything from ideation, helping people, they have an idea in their head. How do we take it to market? So product development, strategy, to building proof of concepts, MVPs, and that's through design, development, QA. We work with all the major hyperscalers, AWS, Azure, Oracle, GCP. And then we've also, because of our demand, we've started a cybersecurity unit, and we have a SOC, a 24/7 operation there. But what's really interesting, Thom, is we started this company as a mobile developer, only doing mobile apps, because there's such a demand at that time. And this business, or this industry, is a services industry, and it relies on trust. Just as if you're getting your house painted, you don't go look it up online. You go ask somebody who you knew got their house painted recently.
Sure.
Right? So it's the same way in my business. So how did we grow to all these other capabilities? Well, one, I wouldn't do anything new with a new client because I didn't want to lose our brand. Second, we grew because our existing clients who came in through mobile apps asked us to go do things. They knew our processes, they knew our team. And so I said yes, but I was fully transparent. We've never done it. And they're like, you can figure it out. So over the years, that's not a big deal today because we do everything. But at the time, it was a big deal to turn away business when you're, bootstrapped a company.
So it's interesting. One of the things I love when I get to talk to young entrepreneurs, and in this role, I get to talk to a lot of people, seasoned entrepreneurs all the way down to, Bob and Becky with an idea. And you talk about the fact that you do a lot of ideation with companies who have an idea for a software product or some sort of a tool, but they don't know how to get it out there. Tell me about what that's like on your side. When someone comes to you with an idea, but maybe they don't have the tech expertise to develop the whole thing, how do you help them through that process?
It's actually really fun for our employees because developers, anybody in tech, their whole goal is to solve problems. And the harder the problem, the better, right? But I can't mention the customer's name, but we had an NBA franchise that came to us, our very first project, and the president and GM was getting scouting reports via fax machines. And this was in 2016. So this wasn't that long ago. In fact, my team didn't even know what fax machines were.
I was going to say by 2016, I don't think I'd used a fax machine in years by then.
Yeah, I think 2005 was the last time I did. But he was sitting at home over Christmas, and his granddaughter had an iPad that had just come out. And he was like, wow, wouldn't it be nice to have everything on my iPad? And so they came to us. I gave them 2 designers, one that knew about basketball and one that did not. And I said, hey, interview them both, see what you think. He chose the one that didn't know anything about basketball because he wanted it to be as easy as possible for him and his employees to use this functionality. So, that kind of problem, we've been with that team now for 8+ years. We've built unbelievable products for them. And I would have never guessed the relationship turned into that off of changing somebody from getting faxes to an easy web app for an iPad.
So it's interesting. I know you can't necessarily name names, but what are the different industries that you've served? This is in talking to people who do what you do. This is actually one of my favorite questions because some people have a vertical. They work with this type of company, but a lot of my friends who do the type of work you do, you start listening, the stories of the different industries, and it's like that basketball story is a good story, but I bet you got a bunch of them.
Yeah. So we work in 9 verticals, and that just happened in 2020. We did a go-to-market study with Bain, and they highly recommended our marketing spend be specialized, which makes sense, right? But we take business from everywhere. But our verticals are retail, banking, financial services, professional services, sports and entertainment, public sector. So we do a lot of public work, manufacturing, real estate, travel and hospitality, and last but not least, technology companies.
Sure, absolutely. So what's been the most fun part of being this entrepreneur? You mentioned that you came from an entrepreneurial family. If your grandfather was still alive, what would be the part he'd be sitting next to you shaking his head going, yeah, this is cool?
Winning is fun. But, when we set up the goal of the company, we had no idea we'd take it this far. But one of our goals was to earn enough money so that 3 founders' families could take a vacation together every year. The other was to make El Salvador a tech hub. And we would know we were successful when our employees were leaving to start up their own businesses. And here it is 13 years later, that is happening. The last thing is, in El Salvador at the time, wages were incredibly low. And we were bringing in middle-class wages to the country, which was unheard of. So we got a lot of notice all of a sudden, right? These young kids that everybody thought they were just gamers and blah, 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 coming out of college are making more than their parents combined. It was a shock to the system, but our goal there was to pay well, obviously, but I wanted everybody to have a car. And when we first started, our first 15 employees, I think 2 had cars outside of the founders. And now we have too many cars. We can't have everybody come to the office the same day because there's not enough parking.
So how many employees do you have in the U.S. and how many employees do you have in El Salvador? And is there anywhere else?
Yeah, we have employees all over the world, mainly, but 95% of them are in the Americas. And why do we have people outside? They're what I call purple squirrels. So people that have a unique talent that's not many places around the world. And so we go find them where they're at. But we have around 800 employees total. We have a couple dozen here in the U.S. But again, the majority, 60% of them are in El Salvador. The remainder are all over Latin America.
Nice. So, like I said, I've been seeing a lot about you. I don't know you per se, but you have been a supporter of the Austin Technology Council, and we thank you for your membership and hope that continues. We'd like to see you come to some more of our events, but I don't know you, but I see the company's name pop up. I'm always watching who shows up in the news. Why have you been showing up, and what's the growth that's happening? What's hot at Applaudo right now?
Yeah, we've had last year we had unbelievable growth, almost into triple digits growth. And at a time where the industry's growing at about, single digit. So, we've been blessed with some unbelievable logos in each one of those verticals. We have the biggest retailer in the world. As I said, we have sports teams in the NBA. We have about 25% of all the sports teams in the NBA. We have NFL teams. We have Spanish league team in football, soccer. So yeah, I really think that those logos really separate ourselves from everybody else.
Sure. So a question that's on my mind, because I'm not in your industry, but there's a lot of news right now going on about AI, and there's a lot of people who are worried about their jobs and worried about their companies. And one of those areas you hear a lot about is, programmers, coding, oh my gosh, AI is going to take all the jobs, and you doubled your business last year. So how does what's the reality of what's happening with AI when it comes to coding? You see all these articles that, you can write your own, you can write everything in 5 minutes with this app. And that's not necessarily the truth at the high end. What's the truth about AI when it comes to this world of custom software development?
Yeah. So let me say, I'm not scared of AI. We're embracing it, and I'm happy for it. It's like any new technology that's come out, and it's scary at the beginning, but then it starts to normalize. Jensen Huang was on Joe Rogan recently, and if you haven't listened to that he does a really good job of explaining, and he's as calm as a cucumber. And to hear him talk about it, and Joe kept trying to get him fired up, and he wouldn't. He was just like, here it is. But my biggest concern, let me tell you first, is we don't have enough electricity to run these large language models.
Right.
Full stop.
Yep.
ChatGPT, I believe, uses more energy per month than the country of India.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we don't have, they're putting up data centers and electrical factories, whatever, I don't know what you call those, but they're putting those up all over the country. But the main place is here in Texas because land is cheap, sun is cheap, right? They use a lot of renewables, but there's a lot of places, since Texas has its own grid, that's where it's at. But we're on schedule for somewhere in 2028 to 2030 to run out of electricity.
Yeah, well, I was hearing I had a meeting about electricity. There's an organization of technology councils. There's 100 independent technology councils around the United States, and 66 of us belong to sort of a best practices organization. And some months back, we were talking about electricity, and Texas is one of the ones they worry about. Arizona also adding a whole bunch of data centers and other things around, AI and things like that. And well, the list was long of areas where it's like, how are we going to power this? And I heard a thing that said that in 10 years we have a huge problem. How do we get around that?
Yeah, well, one, and I want to go back and answer your AI question too, but there's obviously going to be technological advances. I don't think it's going to happen fast enough. So I think if there is a bursting of the bubble, that'll reduce it quite a bit. Now, the good thing is these data centers can turn them on and off very quickly, right? And that you can't do that anywhere else in the grid that consumes that much. It turns off really quickly, but not by choice, right? So that's there. But I think the technology, the chips will start being more efficient. The models won't need as much electricity. But it's going to be worrisome the next, 4 years for sure. I think by 10 years, it'll be solved. Historically, we've done that. And I believe in the ingenuity of the United States of America.
Well, and you bring up a really interesting point, right? My father, he passed away 12 years ago, but he was 99 years old. He was just shy of that 100th birthday. So my dad was born in 1914, which is, if you think about that for a minute, my dad was born 11 years after the Wright brothers flew at Kitty Hawk, which means that he lived in a 100-year span where more things had happened than ever. And he was pretty sharp up until the end. And anytime there was some sort of a problem, whether it was politics, I think he would have a field day today watching the craziness of politics. And his answer would be, they'll fix it. They did. He would always go back to, after Watergate and the Vietnam War, we fixed it. He'd go back to World War II, we fixed it. He'd go back to the 30s, we fixed it. So his theory was just like yours, is the ingenuity, of humans is really strong, and we're going to be able to figure it out. So I do actually believe you when you say that. But I also believe that we can't leave things to chance. So do you see, you have to be paying attention to this in your world. Do you see people really making the right types of strides and stuff around electricity?
Yeah, I think they are, but it's still too early in the game to make. I wouldn't bet on it right now because I'm a bad gambler. But I think in the next 18 to 24 months that it'll be clear either we're in a lot of trouble or we're not, and it's going to advance. But to your point about your grandfather, my grandfather, the entrepreneur,
that was my dad. I have a generation.
Oh, your dad. Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
sorry.
I have a generation missing. My dad was 52 when I was born. So there's a missing generation. So
yeah. But my grandfather, who I was very close with, was that entrepreneur. And he was born in 1901. So I had the same conversations you had. And I asked him at times, weren't you scared of the car or, going to the moon and all these different. He said, I remember this clearly. He said, no, he goes, it was exciting. Right. And I was more on the technology piece. The only time he said he was scared was during the Dust Bowl in the Great Depression. He was like, I don't know if he was scared, but he said that was a hard point in his life.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. But even, my dad said, even he grew up as a, teen or 20s and during the Depression. And he said, it was hard times, but we figured it out. We got beyond it. And so that's what he always told me on a personal level or a societal level. We're going to get beyond it. You just have to have people who are focused on how to do that. I cut you off before. You said there was one more thing about AI you wanted to say.
Yeah. No, you're saying like, what do we see in our industry? Right now, all the money is going to hardware, right? Investments, most of the investments are going to software now the last couple of years. So, and that's going to continue to grow. And that's typical, again, on advancements. Hardware is first and then everything goes after. Think of the iPad or iPhone, right? But, we're not worried that it's going to replace jobs. If it's going to replace our jobs, it's going to replace yours. It's going to replace doctors. It's going to replace police officers. We have a bigger problem than software.
Well, you'd be surprised, you joke about it replaces yours. You'd be surprised how many people I know, because I also am a professional speaker and I hang out with a lot of people. They're writing articles and then feeding it into, I forget what it's called, but it's a meta product, and it'll take that article, it'll create its own 2-person podcast. And you can and they're publishing these left and right. And I'm like, wait a minute. No. You need to have an actual person being interviewed. You can't have like a made up interview. But there's a lot of podcasts out there where they've replaced the podcast host and guest, and people are unaware when they listen.
Yeah. I mean, AI is getting better. You're not going to be able to tell. I mean, just think about now compared to 18 months ago. Now you have to look at it really well. Well, there's a point where you'll look at it as hard as you want, and you still won't be able to tell.
So I know a young man who's a researcher and a programmer in the financial industry. And originally when AI came out, he and his company were like, no. And recently he talked about the use of it. And I'm like, wait a minute, how do we go from no to using it every day? And he said, we had to realize that it's a good tool. And you have to remember that it's a tool. And he said the way he looks at it, and he's a young guy, he's kind of funny. He goes, everything I have it do as far as coding, I treat it like the most junior coder that I have to go through every single line. Like this, but it'll do it and I can go fix stuff. Or you treat it like the best coder on the planet and you were able to hire him at a cheap rate and you're thrilled to have him. But while he codes, he's on LSD. So you have to go back and pay attention to everything that he does. And he goes, if you approach it with those two things, he goes, it's actually a pretty good tool.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to look at it. And we experience very similar things as well.
So is there anything else about Applaudo or about the world of custom software that you want to share before I move on to my next set of questions?
No, I think, again, as I said, this is a trust business. And, I've been in sales the majority of my life. I've worked for a sales company or a SaaS company that had 0 referenceable clients. I have more clients that are able to be or willing to be references than I do people needing them. And, so I feel incredibly blessed around that. And, it's an exciting time for the industry. And, there's a lot of these companies here in Austin doing great work, and it's making the world a better place.
Nice. So I always like to ask the guests who come on the show about Austin, right? You've lived here for a while. You were here, you came back. Austin's gone through a lot of changes since those, late 90s when you moved here with Dell. Austin's seen, amazing growth. I mean, textbooks will be written about Austin, I think, someday about what we've gone through and how we managed it and how we did it so well. I mean, if you go back to those late 90s, there were a lot of cities who were jockeying to sort of break out of into that world of being a tech hub. And Austin did it better than just about anybody else. However, sometimes I think we're living on our success of 10 and 15 years ago. And so I always like to ask people who are growing businesses right now, what do you think's great about the Austin tech scene? And where do you think we need to pay attention to not lose our way?
Yeah. Since I'm human, we think negatively first. So what I think we've lost, Thom, is that really hungry entrepreneurs, right? We have great entrepreneurs, but a really hungry tech scene. I think we need people to be pushing the limits more. We've kind of grown up and not taking as risks, like an F1 driver. It's just their brain. When you get older, your brain will not let you take risks that you take at 20 years old or 21. It's just science, right? No matter how good you are, Lewis Hamilton is not as good as he was 10 years ago because he won't take the risks. So I think some of that has happened. That's the thing I see on the downside. What's really good about Austin, though, is in the tech community, everybody is really open and friendly and willing to help. We just recently joined the Chamber of Commerce, and you guys did a joint venture last week or presentation on technology, right? And I was there, but I went to 4 events last week and met people from all different industries. Everybody was willing to help. I met with a software consultant. I had an hour call with her this week, sharing my best practice of how we started the business and what she should do and shouldn't do. I'm not an exception. I'm the norm. Right.
Well, in that breakfast that you attended, it was called the State of Tech, and it was a first annual event, and it's something that the Chamber and the Austin Technology Council had been kicking around. You know, we're independent of each other, but both organizations believe that the more the business nonprofits work together, the better it is for our city. There's a history of organizations competing because there's limited membership and limited sponsorship money, and so people are like, we're better than them. They can't do something together. Somebody will discover, the Chamber. And in fact, that event, the Chamber was happy because a lot of people who'd never been to one of their events before, who were on my list, attended. And so they were really happy with that. But I was really happy because of the amount of people who were there because, the Chamber who came up and said, I didn't realize that ATC had done all these things the last couple of years because we're a 34-year-old organization. So if you've been around 5 years, you remember it 5 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever. And so it was great for me because of the amount of people who were like, well, we need to get back involved. So so people who think,
one thing on that, let me jump in there. We're members of Chamber of Commerce. There's another tech councils in other cities where we have employees, and flat out Austin Tech Council and the Austin Chamber of Commerce is the way above anybody else. There isn't a second place, on everything.
Well, I think the Chamber of Commerce and I will pull that clip out and just put it on a loop everywhere.
And I told them, so I'm telling you. So now I've told both of you, and that's not just blowing smoke. It is. I mean, from A to Z, it's a different experience.
Well, we appreciate that, and we're working really hard at ATC. I was hired to kind of reinvent it because you have a 30-year-old organization. It's time for a glow up, if you will. And I need entrepreneurs like you. I need people like you who are helping us have ideas, helping drive people to our events, because we have to be a grassroots organization. If we're not a grassroots organization driven by the grassroots, we're never going to achieve the goals that we have. And we've got some big goals for 2026. So thank you for saying that, and thank you for being a supporter. And then I want to go back, though, when you talked about to the fact that maybe, we're not as hungry as we were, and the entrepreneurs aren't as hungry. And I agree with you. I think it's both. We need to have that class like we did 15 years ago where everybody was hungry to have that startup and figure it out and find their funding. I don't see that as much. It's still there, but I don't see it as much. But I also think as a community, I think as a tech ecosystem, we have to be really cautious not to believe. It's funny, the old saying, believe our press. Our press actually has been bad in the national press. We keep having these articles that say Austin's days as a tech leader are over, and then the next day we're in some other magazine as the number one place to have a tech startup. So the press doesn't, when I say believe the press, I mean we sometimes believe our good press. And I think we need to be scrappy as a community like we were 15 and 20 years ago. That's my thought.
Agreed. I completely agree.
Well, Scott Kenyon, go ahead.
No, and I don't know what's changed it. I don't know if it's the VCs moving here, the private equity. They were here before, but there's a lot more now. But we've got to figure that out. And there are like segments or pockets of it. What we're doing, the industries in the vertical of defense is very scrappy.
Yep.
Robotics as well.
Yep.
But I don't see it overall. But that's also probably because it's numbers, right? We've grown so much that the larger group you get, you act like most of society.
Yeah, and I actually think it has to do with the growth and the traffic that has come along. You used to be able to go to a breakfast in the Arboretum, a lunch downtown, and then a happy hour in the Domain. But now, because of traffic, you can't do that. Like if I have to be in the Domain, I live in Southwest Austin. If I have to be in the Domain for like a 5:30 happy hour, I have to leave before 3:30. Go to the Starbucks in the Domain, bring my computer and get some work done so that I can go to the happy hour. So you can't just bop to everything. The other thing is there's a lot more organizations. I mean, if you go back 20 years, there was the Chamber and there was the Austin Technology Council and a handful of others. Now we have like 30 different business groups, a lot of for-profit communities are popping up where someone says, hey, you want community, pay me $15,000. And these are popping up. And so it's like, there is the competition. And that's why we're leading the charge on trying to get everybody to work together. It's not a zero-sum game. Everybody can play well. And I think that as the city grows, we need to have that thread that sort of is connective tissue to all the different silos that exist in tech and general business.
A future podcast may be good around, I mentioned to you earlier, Joyce Mullen, a competitor of ours at Gap. She and I talk quarterly. It may be good to have both of us on at the same time and say, what have we done to help each other? And how do we spread that throughout the community?
Joyce Durst, but
Joyce Mullen was my boss at Dell Computers. Both are incredibly intelligent women and respect the heck out of it.
Absolutely. Well, you said that and my brain was like, wait a minute. And Joyce Durst, she's been on this show, I think twice, and she was the 2024 inductee into the Austin Tech Hall of Fame, which, by the way, from everybody listening, in January, we will open nominations. Again, we will do 8 legacy inductees, and we'll do a 2026 inductee and a first-time founder award. So be watching the Austin Technology Council social media and our newsletter and our website for the information about that, because that's about to kick off big time, looking for the nominations for year 3 of our 8-year planned launch of the Hall of Fame, because you can't drop 60 or 70 people into a Hall of Fame in one day. And we probably should have started this 15 years ago, but we're doing our best with this program. So we put 8 legacy people in a year to help us get caught up on that. And you can find more information about that at austintechhalloffame.com. So Scott, again, thank you so much for being a guest here on the show, and thank you for your support of ATC. Any final words?
No, thank you for the time, and let's go Austin.
Nice. Well, again, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. The way this show works is you tell 2 friends that, hey, you should check out the Austin Technology Council's podcast, and then they tell 2 friends, and so on and so on. And for those of you who are old enough, you'll know where I just stole that from. The rest of you, you're too young to know old shampoo commercials. All right. Thank you very much. Again, Scott, thanks for being here. We'll see you next week right here on Austin Tech Connect.